Hi, everybody. Oak oracles. The oldest oracle in ancient Greece was the one at Dodona in Epirus, and it was an oracle dedicated to Zeus and Rhea, I believe. So both the heavenly father and the mother of the gods. And in it there was a sacred oak, um, and it was from the way the wind whispered and moved through this oak tree that they would take the oracles and pass them on to those who visited. The oak tree was also the sacred ancient tree of the Germanic peoples, and it's kind of moved on to the ash tree or the ask as it's called here. And so, if you're wondering what the OAK is about, well, the Alpha and Omega have switched places, haven't they? And so it begins with the ending, and then a new beginning, and then the K is, of course, the mysterious letter. If you've ever read a lot of Kafka, you'd recognize it from his authorship, right? There's always the K who is the main character of the castle, for instance. And so I also am finishing to change my own legal name here at the moment. I've kind of been looking into what kind of ramifications it might have, but I think it might be actually a whole lot of fun to try to have a new name, because a part of what happened around the equinox in September, and that entire episode I went through was also that something was left there in the other realms, and what came back was somehow not the person I'd been, and so things have been changing a lot here. So putting my body back together, I'm in this new weird place, another new weird place. Um, and yeah, I'm also quitting cannabis, and like my diet is changing, and everything is kind of very new and weird and fresh. And that's, of course, a good thing, and it is a thing you can magically do. You can sacrifice whatever it is it's unwanted for you, and then put it into the sacrificial fire, and then retrieve whatever is left and put that into place, reshape it, take the ashes and grow something new from it. That's a kind of a magical act, and it can be a very powerful act, but it's of course also kind of at that edge of normality and identity and psychology, where things can get a little wonky, weird, and crazy. But it seems that renewal is what the world is in many ways sorely needing. So I think it's good that we begin to undertake these magical acts, and I'm also figuring out that a lot of the people who I've really been inspired by on my journey are people who have kind of done this, recreated their identities somehow, abandoned whatever it was, and then sort of began living a new life that was passed on to them as a type of task, or um, this kind of new sacred costume that you were meant to don. And I think that's a great privilege of the modern age, that we can do that and play around with those things. Um, and the reason I'm bringing this up is partially somebody asked, but also to frame the general theme of this video, which is I'm going to be channeling the Archangel Azrael on dead egregores, because we are seeing a lot of egregores now. And just to refresh your memory, if you don't know, egregores is this magical concept which are disincarnate species or entities which are created out of human intention. So the question is like, is Zeus real, or is the Archangel Gabriel real, or is Shiva real? Uh, who knows? They somehow embody archetypal primordial forces, and they're concentrated into these figures. But because human beings have been interacting with them and made sense of their lives through these entities, they become real, they're granted reality, and they take on a type of life and agency of their own. And that's the dead egregore. And that also goes for instance, national egregore, so nation states, and it goes for money and currency, it goes for political offices, it goes for social institutions. And that's a lot of what we're seeing, is that all these things are collapsing and are in their death throes. And a lot of that has been a technological journey also, where it seems that our technology has really done something to the concept of human identity within the past few generations, which is absolutely remarkable. Um, and I think a lot of what happened is television, because television has this interesting effect that it makes it puts people uh, on screen through a camera, and anybody who's in front of a camera become very self-conscious, and so they're sort of naturally put into a place where they're performing themselves. And you can perhaps speculate on your own on what kind of people would be most inclined to, or be well suited for those roles, which are people who are kind of always performing themselves, which is people who have a very false, distorted self-image, right? Which works for them, what we usually call ego. So I think we really got used to seeing this performance play out, and then we sort of got a sense that this was actually normality. This was human behavior as it was supposed to. And so the whole worship around actors, for instance, which is traditionally is seen as a very lowly trade, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but for instance, in the ancient world, actors would be around there with like pickpockets and prostitutes and all the other riffraff, like people who were generally considered um, unwanted, untrustworthy, just for the very fact that they, of course, somehow are performers, and so you can never know where you have an actor. And so the interesting, I recognize it's an art form, but the interesting thing is, of course, that once that becomes a kind of a value in and of itself, to be able to perform yourself. And then this very, very radical fragmentation that happened through the last 12, 10, 15 years or so, with the advent of camera phones and smartphones, and the idea that everybody all of a sudden were performing themselves. And I think that was the very eerie sensation I got from Facebook from the start, and it never sat right with me having a Facebook profile. I always felt like there was some kind of strange false version of me, always alive and potentially interacting with people and attracting things and experiences which were defined by performativity, which were defined not by who I am, but who I put myself forward as. And that's a super scary imbalance to live in. And I just read a statistic here, for instance, that it kind of took off with COVID, with young people in general feeling like a general sense of malaise, And so I read a statistic this morning that it's about, I think, 34 something percent of all young Danish women or people in their late teens who report that they're discontent, they're generally unhappy and feeling like they're not doing well in life. And I think it's around 20% of young males, which is a very, very high statistic for a society which has uh, the highest standard of living of anywhere on the planet. Yeah, sometimes it's Norway or Finland or something, but like these are the places that top the happiness statistics, because these are the places where the most people actually have access to living the kind of lives which should be good lives, and yet they aren't somehow. And and that's the, the demon of performativity. That's the demon of having to constantly become someone, and to be someone rather than to just be. And a way that the channeling works in this is, of course, that it kind of puts new faces on the divine. And that's a very Hindu way of looking at the world. Um, that, there is this great one, undivided divine, but it has thousands and thousands and thousands of faces and proliferations, ways of expressing itself, which again is another thing I've been experiencing. So speaking of dead egregores, I've also sort of had the experience of just Christianity, which I was born into, sort of falling off and having very, very little appeal to me. And Shiva kind of finally taking over, and he's been doing this for, I don't know, like 20, 25, all my life, perhaps, yes. Just taking over and being the thing where it's like, yeah, like that's apparently my path. Like I'm a cyber. That's my confession, um, and that suits me a lot better to worship a dancing god than a dying god. And I think those are a lot of the configurations that we're seeing, that if the family is dying off, the world order is crashing at breakneck speed. The dollar, I'll just predict this for you guys, that the dollar will um, move into some kind of downward spiral beginning around late summer, is my sense of it. But there's going to be an incredibly enormous tank in American economy in particular, and the dollar as the reserve currency. So you might, for instance, know that it exists. Um, Most currencies exist in about 5% in their physical of the amount. Like, so, like there's 5% of all the euros in existence in print, or 5% of the Danish kroners in existence are in print. But with the dollar, it's 10%, because like a lot of countries which have unstable economies themselves use it as a base currency, and also because a lot of people use it to store value. So, El Chapo or somebody who has like bales of dollars hiding away in his basement, and perhaps also less sinister characters. National banks are the places who keeps like dollar reserves on hand. So all that is changing and crashing, and you'll also notice that just concepts like ownership are crashing. So for instance, like, who owns this video? Once I post it to YouTube, trying to get off YouTube, I'll let you know. Um, but who owns this video? Because like all of a sudden, like your software is for lease, whatever you're doing is for lease, right? You don't buy things and own them manually. You kind of get to use them as long as you pay for it. And if you don't pay for it with your money, you pay for it with your attention, or you pay for it with your data. So you kind of pay for it by being manipulated, which is a very weird thing. Um, and I think I don't really know the take on it, but it's very obvious for me that that's what's happening. And what happened in building in this great crescendo until 2024 was that the human oversoul was coming more and more together. It was becoming more and more global, and then it broke into this energetic space where it's super interconnected still, but it's in all these little swirls and eddies and interesting sidetracks. Um, and so we're seeing so much of that developing, like these um, almost like funnels that energy pours into, which are very specific, and where it's all also becoming a lot more difficult to reach into universal experience, and to even talk about what it means to be universally human, like sacred man or woman, right? So we're becoming particularized, and a lot of what the grays seem to represent, the hybrids seem to represent, are these adjacent timelines where people develop in all kinds of directions. And it's in many ways a scary reality to live in, because it's the great wide unknown, but it also promises us that we can play around with identity, we can reconfigure ourselves, we can live so many different lives, and we can do what we want. We can change reality around ourselves by applying ourselves to it. But it has to do also with this, um, cessation of performativity. So there's a pressure, and which you're seeing if you look around. I'll not give concrete examples. I'm pretty sure you can see it, but if you look around at for instance, at like the concept of celebrity, of the worship of people who are famous, or sort of become fetishized by a lot of people, that you'll see like these very psychopathic, narcissistic configurations, which is essentially just ego that has taken over the energy flow. Um, that they're really really trying to extract a lot of energy, because they can't get any natural energy anymore. And so what they're clinging to is the major dying egregor, which is the egregor of money. um, and speaking of all these things of abundance, like always think of abundance as a flow. And that's how the Franciscans, for instance, the early Franciscans, they lived. So the idea that whatever food you had in extra for the day, you'd give to a beggar or somebody, because every day the Lord provides, and if He doesn't, that's also a part of it. And I don't know if you can see if that's actually a very very abundant mindset compared to the billionaire hoarding of dead dollars, right? Which don't do anything good for people. And if you observe what hoarding does to people, it's absolutely terrible. Like just the way hoarding destroys an environment, and the people living in it, whatever that is, if it's uh, the person who's not doing well, or it's a society who just keeps putting trash into the middle of their community and can't get it out of there or something. It really, it's very very destructive, and that's also what's happening to our money and our currency energies. So those are some reflections that I really wanted to share around this, and I hope may benefit somebody. At least they gave me a little clarity around what it is. I've been thinking about these things for a while now, and then I'm going to channel Azrael, who is of course the angel of death. Um, and I think he might be the one who could give some interesting perspectives on this. So let's see what he has to say. Much love to you out there. There are no worlds, no realms, no world systems, no places, which do not contain a passageway to another. No place is shut off, not even what you think of as your universe. This totality of creation, of existence, of the manifest, this too has a beginning and an end, and both are connected to other beginnings and other endings. This is how energy flows, and spirit is energy, and energy is existence, and existence never ceases. I, Azrael, the angel of death, I greet you this day, and I bring to you the blessings of the All. This I promise you, whatever is finished shall rise again in unrecognizable and transformed shapes, but it is always with you. What you have, what you have been, what you have seen and experienced, all this changes. It is mutable, and therefore it is alive. And so the past is with you, always. This too I promise you. All endings are beginnings, and every beginning contains much more of the unknown than of what is known and already seen. I speak, therefore, of the changing course of reality. I speak of things unknown, yet to come, from things known which has come to pass. What has come to pass for you? What are the things which have died off in your life already and that you cling to? This vessel I speak through, this pot of living clay, shaped by elements to contain elements. This vessel, he spoke of the horde and know that this is always what I come to claim in the end, preceding a new beginning. I come to claim your hoards of worthless treasure, whatever you gather of memories, of things, of possessions, even of sentiment and of fond recollection. All of it I gather up and pour in to the pyre of the great and universal whole. This eternal fire of change. I am the servant of rebirth. This you shall know. This act is performed again and again and again in your life as well. As you reach daybreak, you gather up the dreams, the rest, and the sleep of night, and pour it in to the pyre of the rising sun. As you reach midday, you shed the activities of morning, and you move in to afternoon, restored, able to act in accordance with that time of day only because you abandoned what preceded it. And in the evening, you have both the trials and the treasures of the day gathered up. They may help you, or they may weigh you down, but regardless, those two you shall sacrifice in order for you to pass into sleep again. To everyone listening, I grant you this one boon. Whatever you willfully sacrifice, whatever you are able to let go completely, voluntarily, shall be returned to you in an unrecognizable and yet improved shape. Whatever you willfully allow to no longer be, shall become what you need and what you wish for. This is the sacred art of sacrifice. And this is what I teach you to embrace and accept. So let the rebirth be your shining light, and know that light restores itself again and again and again, and you with it again and again and again. Thus renewed, I leave you this moment of your time. I leave this world of your time to return to eternity. And so eternity and time join hands from beginning to end and end to beginning. With the benedictions and blessings and love of the highest all, I depart from you this day. Farewell.